Hi, everybody. Hey, Sally, welcome.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am doing well. Had an early morning this morning, but it's all right. I'm not used to that on Fridays.
Here, an early work morning?
Yeah, there was a junior league event I had recommend. I'm not a part of junior league, but a friend is and had asked for a recommendation for a panel. Had
Mm,
recommended someone, and so I felt like I should go. It was a great event. And I got to do some HSAC work while I was there. I ran into Tammy. So I've got an update on that.
oh, excellent.
Hey Colin, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good.
How's
Russ did
everybody?
share with me that there's some employee appreciation event happening this morning. So he was planning to be late. And if we need him for quorum, that I can ping him and he will come. Hey, Jonathan.
Good morning. Happy
Long time
Friday.
no see. It was
Yeah.
good to share space with you on Wednesday.
Likewise, the retreat was excellent.
Yeah, I
So
thought so.
it was a good day for me.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. I will say y'all killed it on the food too. It's good food.
Good food goes a long way.
Yeah, I mean, yes. For me, 100%. I think that's true for other people too. It helps me focus, sustains you.
Does that mean you took some of the leftovers home?
I didn't actually. I ate so much of the salad options that then I didn't eat my lunch.
That broccoli salad was, oh my
Ugh,
God, I
it
took
was
some at home.
good.
It was.
And then what I did when I got home is I had the grilled chicken sandwich and I took the grilled chicken and put it on top of a salad. That was good. Uh,
Okay.
My other current party trick with food is I really like the dressing, the salad dressing from Alpaca. And it's like a cilantro, lime. And I just go and just buy the dressing. And then so I put that on top of the salad with the chicken. It was good.
Yeah, they have great food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I really love to see the like kids take it on and really they've grown a ton. Um, Always opening new locations, which is really cool to see. So is Ebony's an excused
She,
absence?
she's out. Yeah.
And
Conference.
then do we know about Sharita? And by Ebony being out, does that mean that to reach quorum, we would need Russ here? I always get
I
confused
can
about
check.
quorum
I can
rules.
check Sharita. Hold on.
Okay. Sally, some of the folks from Root Causes were at the thing this morning too, so we talked about Project Access a little bit.
Be right back. Give me 1 second.
Oh, nifty. Was it the food people or the wellness people?
So Trevor was there. I'm forgetting his last name. He's kind of one of the leaders.
Uh-huh.
And then Scott or Esco Brummel
Oh, yeah.
was also there, and he's now a part of our office in a food security position.
Okay, great.
So they were both there. I think what I learned is at some point, I guess there was some funding um, from Junior League to Root Causes. So
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, we work a little bit more closely with
the
the
well,
wellness team. Yeah, but yeah, have know of the work of the food team as well.
got it. Yeah, Trevor was sharing a bit about well nest, and he said he would follow up with more information. I know I heard bits and pieces here and there about it, so it was nice to be somewhere else and to hear hear your name come up and some of the work that y'all are doing in collaboration. So that was cool.
Yeah. And did you see that you saw Tammy from Families Moving Forward?
Yeah, Tammy was there as well. I think just to attend, and we had had a request from the Early Childhood Task Force to do a presentation, and so I was checking in with her about if they wanted to do that in this upcoming March meeting or April.
Okay.
So I
Very
was like,
nice.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get up with her maybe next week or the following week just to catch up.
Maybe I'm saying the wrong name. It's not Tammy.
Oh, okay.
It is. I did this yesterday too. It's Tasha, right?
Tasha, okay. Okay. That's what I was wondering. Yeah. So
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Tasha is the new ED.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I did this yesterday when I was emailing her to check in. I wrote Tammy and I was like, something's not right here. And I had to go on the website to remind myself. I think it's the T's that are confusing me. Tasha. Now it's recorded, so I'll be embarrassed enough to change it in my mind. Thanks for helping me get there, Sally.
Sharita said she can join. She'll be here in a moment, I believe.
Okay. So help me with quorum. When we're a smaller group, we need
Yes,
3.
Yes, sorry.
Okay. I just am not, I'm learning those rules, so I always feel hesitant to just say it. Okay, cool. So if Sharita's joining us, then Russ will join us just a little late.
Mhm.
Get started. Um,
I mean, we can go ahead and get
oh yeah, we can open. We just
started with,
the minutes.
we
and go
can't
through
approve
them.
anything, but the only
Sure.
thing we're approving is minutes.
Yep, that's right. Okay, welcome everybody. Calling this meeting to order on March 1st at 10:08. Today on our agenda, we're hoping to keep it within the hour since we had our HSAC retreat and meeting on Wednesday. It's a big HSAC week. The way the meeting kind of fell, the first Friday was also the first day of the month. We're looking at approving the minutes, planning for March. Just doing a really quick reflection. So if folks can just share a quick thought about how they thought Wednesday went. We'll really go into deeper conversation about that in April. And then talking about committee leadership recruitment. So within exec, we have some positions we'll need to fill come August. And also I know that that's been a conversation in our committees as well. So just want to lift that up, that we could talk about that as well. And then as there's time, just a brief conversation on focusing our exec conversations moving forward. We've been juggling a couple of different things. And it would be helpful if we could just identify what's the one thing we want to focus on every month moving forward in our conversations, as I'm realizing I now have 4 or 5 meetings left. And so I would, instead of juggling a couple things, maybe we can decide what we want to focus on. So those are our items. Since we don't have quorum yet, we're going to skip the minutes and we'll come back to it. And then we'll move right into March agenda planning. So I'll pass that off to Colin. I will share here again that Tasha from Families Moving Forward, I ran into her this morning. She shared that probably best to wait till April to do the presentation. And she confirmed with the facilitator that supported their early childhood task force in working through their visioning or plan that date would work. So let's go ahead and move that from March to April. It's been requested as a 30-minute presentation that includes questions. Thanks, Colin.
You got it. Move this here. So early childhood task force,
Yep, that's
April.
it. And if we can just put 30 minutes next to it.
Yeah.
So the only thing I want to make sure is that from y'all's end, that there isn't anything in April that we have to do, that would be big, that would maybe knock them from April. So that way I could just tell them now.
Sorry I'm late, you guys.
No problem,
Good, how you
welcome.
doing, Sharita? The only other thing, we had talked about possibly doing system performance measures, but it's probably better to do those in April. If we want to do system performance measures there, we could bump them to May if we needed to. Because we'll just get that stuff submitted to HUD mid-March. It'll be due mid-March to HUD. Couple weeks. And then it's probably better to move system performance to April or May, depending on time frames. So the only thing right now we've got for March is policy and planning update. Ryan Smith had requested to talk about the Heart Team experience standing up the tents over Martin Luther King weekend. He is in hopes of getting HSAC or getting some traction of standing up something longer term and more permanent. And the Policy and Planning Committee was started working on that in February. So he's coming to the March Policy and Planning Committee to share what they learned from the tent pilot with policy and planning to be part of the white flag planning for 2024, 2025. And I don't know if if there's an interest in the HSAC having a presentation from Hart about that we could invite him to come and present there as well.
Sharita, do you have thoughts since this is living within policy and planning right now? My thought is to just let it be there, and then once there's, I guess, more of a plan or an idea that would make sense for it to then come to the larger group, but perhaps y'all have had other conversations.
No, I agree with that. I think that we can tease it through, tease it out in policy and planning, and then maybe the bigger presentation comes out of the traction we make talking about it in policy and planning.
Great. I was curious, I know one of the things as a part of the retreat, in planning the retreat, we had talked about our ability to kind of create task forces that would be able to include folks from outside of HSAC. I would just be curious if there's been conversations in policy of planning around like white flag and the stuff with Hart. I think it could be an interesting way to add capacity and include folks that like are working adjacent to, but in many ways overlap with some of the work that y'all are doing in policy and planning. So just a thought, I didn't know if y'all had already talked about that.
Anthony's out, but he has kind of been talking to the lived experience group, which is that subgroup committee, which has people that are not necessarily HSAC members or COC members
Sure.
on there. And they've been talking about white flag and shelter and, homeless expansion on that level. We've also, shoot, I lost my thought. Anthony and the white flag. Yeah. So I think That's one place that's been discussed, but we can
So
always bring more people in.
let me add some thoughts. Um, I think there are a lot of subcommittees of our subcommittees that could be doing work. Historically, one of the reasons for making some of the changes that we made to how our continuum works is that we wanted to keep some separation between working groups and HSAC. So the HSAC exists solely as the governing body and not like necessarily the worker, where the direct work happens, like so that HSAC remains at an administrative overarching kind of entity, and then other stuff happens either in special subcommittees that we put in place, or once upon a time they lived in SAID, the Council to End Homelessness of Durham, that had not been meeting since the pandemic. Lloyd we just got an email, and Lloyd's not on, right, Colin? He's not on here. So that group is reconvening. So in my mind, I think that this is a good conversation to bring to a SAID body. Because what tended to happen in SAID is that a lot of things that we talked about in HSAC, kind of the work tasks happened in SAID. And even if there were people on HSAC that were working on those SAID committees, it was still separate. So my suggestion is for this to be a topic that's added to the first meeting when SAID reconvenes, I think this month, about some of this stuff so the work can be done. And then maybe we have some ongoing kind of reports in from SAID around like tasks. That's what's in my mind, because I also had somebody reach out to me about youth stuff after the retreat. And so we used to have like a youth subcommittee before the structure of HSAC changed. And so like in my mind, I'm still sitting here like, yeah, there are a lot of things that we need to do. We do need to strategize. We do need to have a strategy for all of these things, like that big overarching thing that you see a leadership body doing, right? And we just haven't gotten there. Part of it is just because we keep getting new members, so the retraining just to get people up to speed so that we can, go to the next level. But we do need to have some way to have a strategic plan independent of the work that we do at HSAC, the work that SAID does, the work that any special working groups does. So we finally do get to meet some of those strategical goals too, because we don't always want to be running for what's in. We see our senior numbers climbing, right? I looked at our clinic schedule yesterday, and we had 12 people on the schedule, and 10 of them were 55 or older. So I'm like, oh my goodness, this is like, it's really, really happening. Like, we're servicing these people. Look at what it's like. The young people are like surprises when you see somebody in their 30s or their 20s. Like, our population is aging. But I just said it to say, like, I think that we need to figure out kind of where the line is at the HSAC level to make sure that we're not going down the hole that we were in before. So
I
don't know.
I think that was really helpful to know that group is meeting again. I think for most of my time on HSAC, I have not heard about this group. And so I guess, is there a website or somewhere where they post their meeting times and who the leader is, the leader the same?
So the leader is not the same. I think that's one of the reasons why the group kind of fizzled out, because that person transitioned out, and then because of the pandemic, everybody was scattered, and everybody's work life changed. There was no succession of appointment of like the next person to spearhead that. So I think Lloyd had just been facilitating, because he's been still sending out emails to the SAID group, even though SAID was not physically meeting, actively having meetings. And so we got an email. I haven't, I can't even remember where it is. Please excuse my brain. I might be able to find it before the meeting is over. But you know, I think that that's probably one of the first orders of business when this meeting happens, because I think Lord is just like getting people together, and then he's gonna start to try to like reestablish the hierarchy so that we know where to go. And so in my mind,
Okay.
the meeting of said probably should just be added to our continuum page, Colin, right? If it's gonna be a working group.
I I don't know. It unless the said this
SAD stands for Council to End Homelessness of Durham. That's the name of the group.
Right.
CEHD.
right. So
I'm just saying that for Eliza's because I just
Thank you. I'm writing it
Yeah.
down.
I think the said group. I think the question is. It sounds like it's kind of it's a standalone group.
it's a
That,
standalone group, but
but it doesn't necessarily. It's a working group in the community, but it doesn't necessarily have a formal reporting structure to the HSAC.
Yeah.
And I think that's the piece where I'm trying to figure out. It's not like our lived experience work group, for instance.
mhm.
We were intentional and said, okay, policy and planning is going to create this work group and CDD will staff it. And Lloyd's been part of SAID for a while, and Lloyd's retiring in 2 months. So, the SAID is, and did HSAC establish SAID, or was SAID kind of established separate
It was
of the
established
HSAC
when
and
we
as a
had
separate group?
SAID was established when we had the 10-year plan to end homelessness. SAID is old.
Okay.
SAID was here when I came in 2011. Like SAID and a lot of the 10-year plan overarching goals were actually looked at in a smaller perspective, in a more detailed perspective in those groups. Like that message from the overarching group got carried down to say to kind of operationalize the
So I think-
tasks and things around that. So I don't know if we need to now officially make it a subcommittee. Because I think it's great work that happens there. Sally was at the table. I'm at that table. Most of the shelter case managers were sitting at that table. So it was a lot of cross collaborative kind of space there, or at least the leadership, like the shelter manager, the person over all the case managers was sitting at the table, so messages could get conveyed across the table. But then there were a lot of other community organizations that were also sitting at the table trying to figure out. It was almost like an expanded version of the HSAC, but the work was like actually the group is actually doing the work, like making the steps that HSAC wouldn't make. Like we would say, we need this thing, and then this group would execute, get it done. And then somehow that information, like I think we used to have an update or something. And so like the update would be given to HSAC if there was something specific that was happening. We had minutes, we had officers, all of that stuff.
So it
Okay.
sounds like this group is starting to meet. If that information can get shared, I think, I mean, I would be interested in just understanding it better since I've not really been a part of this HSAC group with it existing. And I think once they figured out kind of how they're going to operate, if it's the same or different in this refresh of sorts for them, I think it may make sense to then kind of understand, how do we as HSAC communicate with this group and what does that look like? Does that sound fair? So maybe in the future, maybe this is a
So
future
what I'm gonna do right now, Eliza, is the meeting is March the 12th at 10 a.m. We've historically had it at the community room space, conference room space at Families Moving Forward. That's where it's going to be.
Okay.
And it was always like, if this is a Tuesday or whatever, it was whatever that day at 10 o'clock, and we would be there for maybe an hour and a half. there are bylaws for said that Lloyd shared that are from 2011, a PDF. I can send that. I can go ahead and forward that to you. Colin, you have it already, right?
I don't know. I mean, I might. If not, I can get with Lloyd. But if you want,
So I'm just
you
gonna
can
send it
copy
to
me.
you. I'll send it to you too, Colin. I mean, it
Cool.
makes no sense for you to have to wait. Um,
Thanks.
so-
So I think one of the things that I'm hearing is, it sounds like what I'm hearing you say, Sharita, correct me if I'm wrong, is sort of HSAC is sort of the deliberative policymaking body. Said are like the workers who sort of take that policy stuff and turn it into action.
right.
Okay. So I think what you're suggesting is great. I think formalizing some sort of agreement partnership between said and HSAC, and because if said is kind of doing work and saying, hey, here's the problem, let's go solve it, and HSAC is saying, here's the problem, let's go solve it, and we're not working tandemly.
No. If we would work, say it would work tandemly. Like there would be, we would like there would be an overarching HSAC thing. It would be brought to said. Said would try to like work it out and then come back and read it and inform. You know, like
Got it.
HSAC. This is kind of what the this it's almost like a COC working group like came up with these things as it relates to this overarching policy or task that HSAC wants us to as a community to work towards.
Okay.
And we will present that information up as information, and if say wanted to then embrace it, take it on, use it, whatever, then then it would go through whatever the HSAC channels is. But it was a way to get the COC voice heard and get their expertise and their the way they do things kind of to make sure that communication is shared, and and the needs are being met and folks are being served and everybody kind of understands what the plan is. So I think like maybe we should just formally
Yeah, let's
make a position with said. So I did send you guys the bylaws. The meeting is May the 12th. People have come to those meetings just out of interest to see if it was a place they wanted to live and work and contribute. We would love to have our HSAC chair to be sitting at the table with us and like hearing from the people. So the door is open and you're welcome to be there. Same thing goes to you, Colin. Reginald came to those meetings sometime when we had upper level questions and things like that. So I imagine that same spirit is going to be in the reconvening of said.
thanks, Rita, for sharing that. I think certainly it would make sense to circle back to this conversation once Sid has had a chance to meet. And I will do my best to be there. So thanks for sending that information.
The other thing I think it's important for us to think about is there's also the Familiar Faces group that's working on pilot programs and doing some work too, that we need to make sure that we are keeping that work in the loop with all the other stuff going on.
My hope would be that Hart would be sitting at that table as well. Like that the extension to be present at HSAC for Hart team would be, and the desire to have somebody consistently sit at the table from Hart team to kind of hear what's happening continuum wide. I think that will also improve us not reinventing the wheel, but extending our reach, because that's where we need to be. We don't need to be everybody doing the same thing. We need to be figuring out how we can do what we do better, how we can be more innovative to get stuff done in a more meaningful way. How can we leverage the support that's coming behind Hart to help us make the system better? So I would hope that Abida or somebody got an invitation to come to that said meeting. If not, I will reach out and make a formal invitation for somebody to be there.
I don't know if anybody from Hart has or not, but we can look into it. And I do know that Jeff and I have talked, and Jeff Anthony and I have talked some about, Jeff and I especially have really talked about setting up another by name list meeting each week to really start looking at the unsheltered, folks who are unsheltered, talking about who they are, who's the Housing for New Hope group working with, who is Open Table working with, and who is Heart working with, so that we're not stepping on each other's toes, because we're hearing stories like from Heart, oh, you know, so and so doesn't want to talk to anybody, they only want to talk to us, and that's fine, but we need to make sure that we're getting people connected and we're not all, you know, serving the same person and getting 3 different stories. So there's a lot of coordination that we definitely need to do. So thank you, Sharita. That I think SET is a great way to bring it in, and looping in Heart and looping in familiar faces in some way, and getting Abinah or Ryan or somebody, or Anise or somebody else from Heart to be in those meetings will be critical if we're going to solve these challenges.
Can I just ask quick, sorry, coming in late. So
Mhm.
when is it, Shrita, and where, who's sending invitations to whom?
I'm talking to the muted microphone. Lloyd has, so the communications as far as like new programs, processes, like hiring events, things like that. Lloyd has still been sending a lot of communications out to the said group, even though the said group hadn't been officially meeting since the pandemic. Oh, Sally has a question in the chat. Uh, um, um, Lloyd is orchestrating a reconvening of that group. The meeting is scheduled for March the 12th. I think in probably the last said meeting we had, maybe Ricky was at the table. It's been a long time, Russ.
So I think what might be helpful is if Lloyd can share, so I'm seeing this
The
from
list.
a Google group.
Yeah.
Yeah, who is on the
Yeah.
list that got the email? And then I think it would be worth, perhaps as a part of the policy and planning update, to mention that during our HSAC meeting as well. And I don't know if there's,
I wish I had said something about it during the retreat, during the announcement, or during the HSAC meeting, during the announcement session, because March 12th will be here before you
Oh,
know
you're
it. We're
right.
already on the 1st.
Yeah.
And
So,
Lloyd didn't bring it up either, so I wish kind of that.
so in the next HSAC meeting, we'll bring it up. And then if Lloyd can get us a list as exec team, I think between us, we could name, oh, this person is gone, this person is new, let's make sure this person knows it. I think that might be helpful to help get the information out. And this has been really helpful and a great conversation. We're at 10:30 and I really want to stay close to an hour as possible. So maybe that's an agenda item for the future. It doesn't sound like it is for this month. So if we can flesh out our agenda for this month, that would be great.
I'll just add one little spiel. I will say, if once we meet, maybe it might be a good idea, whoever we appoint to lead that group, if they would be able to just introduce themselves or speak a little bit, maybe in our next meeting that we're reconvening, and we're looking forward to working with the HSAC. So that's my hope, as long as they don't make me chair. I got enough stuff on my plate right now. But thank y'all for hearing that out. And I'm sorry I drag it out, maybe longer than I should have.
That's important. Thank you.
So do we have anything that we really need to get to in March?
We got policy and planning update. We could, if you want to, we did just get the HUD debriefing document back on our HUD COC application. We could share that, where we scored on those various things. I can put that together and walk through what we scored well, what we didn't score well on, and some of that will probably have to get kicked down to policy and planning and performance management to figure out how we can try and improve some of these scores, because some of our scores are not where we would like them to be. Scored about 150 out of 200 points.
Is that the worst score we've ever had?
Not the worst, I don't think. I mean, I'd have to go, I don't know what I'd have to go back and look, because the scoring isn't always 200. You'd have to go back, like sometimes it's a little higher. So you'd have to go back and do percentages. Is that something you would like to share with I think it's important to share with the HSAC since they approved the application.
Yeah. Would it be a general presentation? Is there like, would there be opportunities to really dive into some of those? Like, I don't want to highlight concerns and then, or like, here's opportunities to do better and then not be able to really
I-
like name specifically yet.
I think we could have some discussion on it. I mean, there's a sort of I don't think we're going to get into the weeds on every one of the scoring
sure.
sections, but hey, here's some scoring sections that we got 50% of the points on. That's how do we do better than 50% of the points? Like, we got 7 out of 14 points in one category. Okay, what would it mean? What could we do differently? Because we're going to be writing this application again in a few months. And now's the time to be saying, all right, how do we beef it up if we haven't already started it yet? What are we going to do? What partnerships do we need to pull together? What conversations do we need to have to start rocking and rolling on this so that we can say these are in motion to beef up that? It doesn't mean you have to have it solved. We just have to demonstrate that we're making progress and solve it. So maybe instead of getting 7 points, we get 9 or 10 points.
Yeah, I agree, Sally. I'm seeing conversations need to start early in the chat. I think the one thing I'm thinking about too is are we able to share or think about how other folks are getting better scores?
So
Is that too early to have those conversations rather than reinventing the wheel as we think about ourselves, kind of what we need to do?
we get a debriefing document for Durham. We
Got
don't have a debriefing document for Wake or Orange or Greenville. So we don't know how they scored or what they scored well or didn't score well on. We might be able to go, if they've posted their application, we could go read their 300-page application and see what they wrote differently and try and figure out how they scored in comparison to us or what they wrote. But we wouldn't be able to say, oh, this scored better, this didn't score better, unless it's clearly articulated. That's the challenge that you have, unless we can get, folks to share their debriefing documents.
Sure. I think we should go ahead and put it on the agenda, but I see hands. Sharita?
I don't necessarily know if I was first. Can we just like get the overarching debriefing themes in this one and maybe like save room on the next couple of meetings to dive deeper into like big areas? And then maybe if something else needs to happen, if it's something that can go under policy and planning to tease through, or performance management to tease through beyond that. Because I do think that we need to keep our focus on it, because we're going to have to do it again, and we need to be thinking about from strategically how to implement better things and how to then articulate that in a way that is true and actual, because I do think that there's a lot of things that probably are not missing because we just don't do a good job at talking about the things that happen. And then maybe also could you kind of like, I mean, if you don't mind, like looking at just the scoring rubrics from like the pre-COVID and maybe 2 years, last year and the year before, just to give us a percentage of kind of where we're sitting now in relation to percentage of how many points we got lost. You get what I'm saying? Like that difference, just so people can like also just see that.
sort of saying like, we scored 75% this year. Last year, we scored 79%. The year before, it was 25%, whatever it was. Sort of your high level, what were your pitch percentage scores? And then on this one, sort of here are areas of concern. And then what I'm hearing you say, Sharita, is come back and have a deeper dive on those discussions at a future HSAC meeting? Or are you suggesting that at this meeting, sort of say, hey, here are some things that policy and planning should take a look at and see what we can do? Because a lot of these need to, a lot of the score work is going to need to happen in policy and planning or performance management.
I mean, Eliza, I will definitely defer to you, but I think that we just need to, I think that we need to be strategic in how we address the areas that we consistently have problems with in, in administrative kind of capacity, but then also in operational, like the way the continuum works, our service providers work to meet that goal. I think by us not talking about it consistently, we run into like, it's time for the next collaborative application and oh shoot, we need to scramble and figure this thing out. So we have so many things that need to happen. So we have to come up with a way to make it easier to try to tackle some things and to strategize, not just for the moment, but also for the future. Because we do have, our goals every month that we review is we want to end homelessness. So we need to be figuring out like how well are we doing? And so that means that we need to have some strategic plans beyond just responding to the immediate things that pop up. So I don't know. I think that some of the immediate work can happen in policy and planning performance management. We might be able to kick some of this stuff to SAID if we bring SAID into the fold to kind of maybe operationalize some other things and do a lot of talking and discussion at that place, because that would then involve more people, more heads at the table, not just the same people doing the work, but also getting the case managers involved in how we do this thing and generating that buy-in and that focus on our unique goals that we have as a system, everybody thinking the same way. So I don't know, maybe I'm talking too much, but Eliza, I'm gonna defer it. I'm gonna try to be quiet the rest of the meeting.
No, I appreciate the way you're thinking about strategy. I think that's really important. I'm gonna pass it to Russ. I see his hand next, and Jeff, I see you after that.
I guess I'm just wondering, my sense of prior process has been, if there are issues, we are kicking it to planning and policy or performance management to review, and then we kind of have a coalition of the willing for writing. And I kind of feel like what I'm hearing is a proposal to do the same thing again. And I'm just curious, why do we have confidence that going the same process again of creating this will get us different results? And or do we need, if you need more staff time from some of the agencies participating, we probably need to just do it in a more organized way and know that we need to be planning that into work plans and things for our teams and start earlier with the writing. Because like I said, it really has been my understanding is kind of like who can show up shows up, and it's really great if we have help kind of piece. And that's been the approach for a number of years. At least that's the way the emails that come out read. So I'm just wondering if part of this is, I mean, as Sally pointed out, which I think is very, very valid, planning in advance and starting sooner on this may make a lot of sense. And maybe we just put together a small task force to work on this. I mean, I appreciate the existing system, but I'm a little concerned that we're going to want to get something different out of doing the same thing.
You raise a really good point, Russ. And writing, keep in mind, we're writing this massive application on the collaborative side. At the same time, we're also running the prioritization, and we're sort of running an RFP for who wants to apply for funds. At the same time, we're writing the massive collaborative application, and people who are applying for funds are writing their own individual organizational proposals and try to contribute at the same time to the bigger writing. One of the things that we have done in an effort to try and help us move the needle a little bit, one of the reasons Jeff and Anthony were brought on. Jeff is taking on coordinated entry administrative role. Anthony's role is going to be taking over for Lloyd on this stuff. Lloyd has done a fantastic job of pulling all of this together and managing multiple contracts. The plan is Anthony, his sole focus is going to be looking at COC and ESG, because if we do this right, it's a 12-month process. It's not a 12-week application process. It's as soon as you write it, you're working on your next one. So Anthony's, 90% of Anthony's job, once Lloyd retires and when Lloyd retires, a new person will get brought in and pick up some of the contract management. And Anthony will be looking at, okay, what do we need to do? Because if we're watching this and building month to month, it won't be a scramble to write it at the last minute, because we're strategically building month by month, week by week throughout the year. So then it's like, oh, okay, we know exactly what we're writing because we've been doing this. It's not like hey, who did what? Oh, wait, yeah, we did do this. Oh, wait, what's the healthcare system doing? Oh, wait, what's justice doing? What's the education system doing? We've kind of been building it year in and year out.
Right. Okay. So if I can just push on one piece, I understand that, but that's the same thing that was, and you know me, I'm on board with you. I'm supportive. That's the same thing we all said 4 or 5 months ago. And so I guess what I'm just asking is, we aren't this year going to get into the 12-year process. I'm fully supportive of that's where we need to go. I'm just asking now, how do we activate on whatever the hybrid is that takes us another step toward it?
So I think that's what Sharita.
Again, I'm trying to be helpful.
No, I hear you. So I think that's what Sharita and Sally brought up, is sort of like, okay, if we share this now, and we know, for instance, and Jonathan, you asked a question, like, where did we score poorly? Well, we scored poorly on system performance. One, we lost rapid rehousing beds. So we got like 0 points because we lost rapid rehousing beds. We scored low on system performance on length of time homeless. People are staying homeless longer. We also scored low on exits to permanent housing. So this is the piece where we need to go do the technical assistance with people who are working with those who are literally homeless, either in emergency shelter or street outreach. And when people are exiting those programs, making sure they are exiting to permanent housing, because if we want to do better, you got to exit people to permanent housing. You can't just keep exiting people to homelessness. That people can't keep exiting to things that are not permanent housing. The other area we still are struggling on is tying healthcare and the homeless system. And HUD has some very specific things. Like we scored 7 out of 14 points on that one. I just happen to remember that one. But that's a piece where HUD is really looking for, is your health system contributing money to housing, not just contributing doctors, nurses, and ER staff. It's like, is your health system putting money into housing for folks? And if you can check that box, you're going to move up a little bit. So it's looking at what are they looking for? Are we going to get all of this solved today? No, but there are things that we can do to start putting in place. And, our job and our team has been sort of saying, okay, we're going to be doing a lot more technical assistance and a lot more in the programs that seem to be struggling with benchmarks, to try and say, all right, what do we need to do to get these around? Because this is hurting our overall ability to bring in bonus projects. Because if we can't get above this 150 threshold, if we can't get to what the median is in the country, we're not going to be bringing in any additional COC money, any other bonus projects. Does that help, Russ?
Jeff, did you want to add something? Go ahead.
I've been chomping at the bit over here. A couple of things to Russ's concern. We have already started. When we started the process, I was just coming on in May, and Anthony coming on in June, and the collaborative application was going on at the time. There were pieces of it that were farmed out to us, but again, we didn't have a great deal of history behind working with the system. Lord was phenomenal in helping us get acclimated, but now we're in. So we're already working on it. The places that we looked at last year's application, not this past one, but the one that we were using to write this, the one that we just got scored on. And we started the recruiting process of trying to get places that we saw in the prior year where we didn't score well. That was part of the push that we were talking about recruiting new members into the COC where we saw that we were lacking. Healthcare was one. We've been pushing with that. Other places that we saw that we were lacking, length of time homeless. When I started with the coordinated entry list, we were at 759 days was the oldest person that was on the list. We are down to 31. That's where we are. We're monitoring now from there. We have shelters who are 30-day shelters. So the goal was to get down to being able to look at a client when they reach their 31st day. And we actually just met that in our last week's meeting. So now we're looking at length of time homeless. We're looking at positive exits. So every place that we saw that we scored low, it won't be a process that we jump into in June. We're already on it. Anthony has been working with the prior application. He's pulled in myself to do the CE portion. So we've already started, but we will be coming back because we're going to need some major assistance with working with getting this data together and seeing where we didn't score well previously on the application. So to your concern, it won't be us starting at that time. We've already started. Melissa had put us a calendar together looking at all the things that we needed to do through the course of the year. And we've been looking at how we're going to maintain and stay on course so that it isn't a mad scramble at the end. That was extremely frustrating. And again, not anyone's fault. We were just coming on. So that is not an issue this year. We'll be coming back. I think committees would be an excellent idea, getting some people involved. We'll also be reaching out to partners at Colin mentioned the healthcare. We're very concerned that there were issues that were things that we actually were already doing that were not highlighted before. So now our goal is to intensify the connections that we already have, look at the scores that we have now, make sure that we are concentrating on those areas where we did not score well, areas that we scored pretty good but not fully. We're looking to maximize those as well, looking to make sure that what we're already doing, that we are getting that highlighted and going into detail. Some of the questions, we're looking at the way others answered the questions, because some of the questions we kind of answered, but really didn't answer. We gave there was a lot of information there, but we're trying to be very specific to exactly what HUD asked, line by line. If HUD is asking for a particular detail, not going into kind of really great detail about one particular item, but we're looking at exactly what they said in A. Did we fully answer A? Did A spill over into B? No, let's not let it spill over. Let's fully answer A with just what they asked in A. B, let's fully answer B and keep B completely separate. And we saw in a lot of areas where it was done well, but it was done kind of flowing. And so we're being very strategic now and making sure that we're being very precise in what we're asking.
So, okay, can I just say, and sorry, my staff laughs because I don't point when I'm upset, I point when I'm excited. That's why I'm pointing.
Okay.
I just want to say, this is the most encouraging update I've heard on this in a long time. And I think we have gotten to figure out how to get, this is going to sound critical, I don't mean for it to. We've got to get better updates from the lead agency to the group to whom they are accountable, which is the COC and the HSAC, because I feel like this conversation we've had is an example of how we unintentionally bury the lead. We could have started with what you've just shared, which is really, really encouraging. And I think when you can come at it, because I mean, part of me at times when we have set our agenda and like we do this rotation of committee updates, that all could be written out. Like that we do not need to spend 5 minutes of verbal on it. I would rather have 5 minutes of verbal, if that's what it has to be, instead of written from you all of like, here's what we're working on, here's what's being addressed, because the comprehensive way you've just covered it also helps us not devolve into, oh, well, what about this group? What about this group? What about this group? Like popcorning ideas where it's like, and I think sometimes that comes from not having confidence that things are being addressed. And that's not always fair. And so I think if we can, I mean, I'm excited in like a really good way here. Like what you shared, and Anthony's done some of the same at times. Like these kind of updates, lead with the headline.
So
Because I
that's
mean, what you just shared is really encouraging.
yes, and so going back to the agenda, I think let's be strategic in how we present that. So is it that presentation item is still listed as the same, or do we have something before that that kind of names, you know, that Anthony and Jeffrey are new in these positions, that this is the work they've been doing, and then lead it into here's what we can work on. And like we just told you the ways we've already been implementing something, so we're well on our way. Because I mean, almost like the same exact conversation needs to happen with the whole group, but we've learned from this one. So how do we set it up better, as Russ has shared?
So maybe I just pulled the debriefing from last year. And the good news is, because Jeff and Anthony are here and we approached the application differently this year, we did score better this year than we did last year. It was a 200-point total last year and a 200-point max this year. So we are in apples to apples. Last year, we scored 136.5 points. This year, we scored 150 points. So I mean, that's about a 10% jump in how we did. So we're moving in the right direction. Like last year, we had 0 points on our coordination with healthcare. This year, we got 7 points. So that's a big jump. I think it would be good. Maybe what we need to do, Russ, on your part, is maybe not every month, but once in a while, and it might be a monthly thing. It's kind of a, hey, here's a lead agency update to the HSAC on things that are happening kind of in the background that aren't always in the forefront unless you're in every single meeting that we're part of, because there's a lot of stuff that we have going on in the background that unless you're in every meeting, you might not hear about it because it's sort of mundane or very specific on one particular nuanced little thing. But all those little nuanced little things that we do sort of add up to try and move the needle forward. But we could do a better job, I agree, of reporting out those kind of behind the scenes things from a transparency standpoint. And
Well, and you pointed out before, to some extent, the HSAC is a board of directors for for the lead agency, as if it's an ED.
Yeah.
And so I think a written report, and I mean, sometimes those written reports to boards turn into like proving we're working. I don't think anybody's worried about whether people are working, but where we're moving strategic pieces forward is really critical. And what Jeffrey shared, and I know like with the lead group that Anthony's worked on and different pieces, like we are moving strategic pieces forward. We just need to make sure people are aware, and then make, I mean, I even joked, I mean, I think part of it is the more we can do to, like, we want people to be involved in discussions, but do it in like a guided questions kind of way, would probably help with some of the discussions we have, because a lot of times, yeah. I'm just really grateful for the update. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Jeffrey.
Thank you. It was a couple things. Sharita had asked a question in the comments about recidivism increasing. It hasn't actually increased. It's the same people. So we're implementing case conferencing. We're trying to work the schedules out in March because we're going after the people who've been most difficult to house. That'll be our first initiative, is the people who are causing us to have recidivism numbers. We're specifically going to focus in on those persons that are affecting our numbers. So we're being very strategic about that. Our discharges to permanent housing, we're working with the through coordinated entry, making sure that people are not discharged into situations, making sure that case managers understand what they can and can't do. So as Colin mentioned earlier, we're going to intensify our TA. We're already talking, and it's on an individual basis, but we intend to bring all case managers together so that we're all saying the same thing, because we've realized in our conversations that there are different impressions. People who've been here for less than 2 years, some who've been here for 15 years, and there's a very different approach to both programs, permanent supportive and to rapid rehousing, with the veterans and with the new people that came on. And a large part of that we found out was because of COVID. There were people who left during COVID, and that brain trust went with them. So a lot of people who have been here less than 2 years don't really have the knowledge and don't fully understand, other than on paper, how this operates. So what we're trying to do is bring those two groups together so that we can share that knowledge for those who are still here, but also make sure that we are following the guidelines as well. And the last part, Sally asked a question. I think she had a question earlier that we kind of got to but didn't finish. And then her question here, yes, we intend to reach out, and we intend to make sure that there's a full understanding with the healthcare providers as to how we're trying to increase our healthcare to the homeless, and what that score looks like and what components there are to it. So yes, Sally, that when I mentioned before that we want to come out to Project Access, we want to physically come out to and have a conversation. So in the month of March, it is our intention to actually come out and make sure that you are aware as well. I think our group, myself, Anthony, Colin as well, I think what we want to do is come, and we want to make sure that we are making sure that you understand, and that we have a full understanding what you're doing there and how we fit this into the application, but also how we make sure that we're maximizing what we can do and what you're able to do as well.
Thanks, everybody. Great discussions. So where are we at with the agenda? We have 2 items. It sounds like we should probably spend a little bit more time. We fleshed out a little bit more about how we could present this well to HSAC members.
Did Melissa mention that she wanted to bring the questions to our upcoming meeting that she asked in the retreat? Like the results of that, is that gonna be ready for, is that gonna be ready for the March meeting?
I think, Melissa, I'm gonna let you go ahead.
No worries. I actually reached out to Eliza that I would like to discuss it with exec first. So the plan is for us to discuss that in the April exec meeting, and we'll go over, hopefully come up with some action items that come out of that discussion. And then we'll bring that and just like a culmination of all of the data that we received from the retreat, and we'll present that to HSAC in April as well. But we'll start with exec first so that you guys can discuss it and see if there are any items you want to bring to the full HSAC as action items.
Yep. So that would be another April item, which means we're doing a great job planning April.
How long do you want to spend on the debriefing and sort of what the lead agency is doing and next steps on the NOFO? 30 minutes, or do you want less or more?
I think at least 30. I mean, we've spent time today. I would imagine, it sounded like even more concise 20 minutes of talking, at least, of presentations or updates, or here's how our process is currently working, and then so 30 to 40 minutes. What do y'all think? Feels like a big chunk of what we should do next
Put it
meeting.
at 30 to 45
Okay.
for now, and we don't have anything else other than the
Right.
policy and planning update. So if you wanted to, I mean, it could be the whole meeting.
Well, what else? I'm seeing Shrita put Medicaid expansion in a question mark. We had that list of kind of occurring ideas. Populations to watch was on there, and I know Shrita mentioned earlier seeing an increase of folks over 55 in the clinic. Oh, I'm sorry, the other document, yeah.
Yep, there we go.
I think that we had talked about having somebody come and talk about Medicaid expansion. Was it somebody from Duke, Eliza, that you had talked about before? That's why I brought it up, just because it seems like we're scrambling for things to occupy the time, and I don't. Go ahead.
I don't think I brought them up, but was it Fred? office?
I had brought up, well, there's kind of two pieces. There's the
Okay.
Medicaid expansion, more people having access, and then there's the Medicaid transformation of, you know, potentially if some of the HOPs expand, being able to use more Medicaid for housing related pieces. And that is Fred and also Ann Oshel, and we've had them both to speak at things for us. And it's about a 45-minute to an hour presentation with questions because it's just so much to get your head around. But they're two, I mean, Shrita, you can correct me, or Sally, they're almost two different things. The way I've tended to hear them is more things you can do with it versus more people being able to access it.
Okay.
I mean, I was thinking about it from the perspective of just making sure that we educate people. You know, maybe that's somebody from DSS coming and just generally speaking about Medicaid expansion, who it applies to, how they can apply. You know, we can put the plug in that, you know, we do have somebody on Mondays and Thursdays at HCH. If folks are our patients or are becoming our patients and need to apply, like somebody's here to do applications in real time, because we do need to keep her busy when she's here. And that has not always been the case. So I'm thinking first and foremost about access, because it opens up the door for us, for people to get other things they need in a more expedient way that hadn't been available to them because of the lack of insurance. So that was kind of where I was headed, and that doesn't necessarily have to be a long presentation. It would just be a statement of the facts, because you know, when I have talked to the supervisor of the person that comes here, they feel like there's a lot of people out there that are not haven't gotten their message and aren't applying that would be eligible. That's kind of where I was coming from.
Do we want to, if you're doing both and the two combined are an hour, Russ, is it better for us to maybe and do one? See if Ann Oshel might want to come and talk, or see if Fred wants to come and talk about
Fred will
part
always come.
one and then do part two, or do they have to go hand in hand?
So I'm gonna raise something. I think this may be a moment of clarity of something in my head because I'm thinking about Shrita, you starting SED back up. SED, my understanding, is historically functioned as a information exchange, like, hey, here's what's going on, and for frontline providers kind of piece. And HSAC, I think, is meant to be a little bit more governing. So I think this is an interesting moment of clarity. So my differentiation would be, am I there, Sharita? We bonded over lunch the other day, so we're having fun. So I almost wonder. So I will say, when we brought in Ann and Fred, we brought them in to meet with leadership and with the board of like big changes are ahead potentially with this Medicaid transformation stuff. And so that was the view we took of it. So kind of up at that level of like, what does this mean for the system? Versus I think a little bit what Sharita's talking about. How do we make sure people are aware that there's things for clients right now? Is that fair, Sharita? And those are two different things, I think, with potentially two different audiences.
Mhm.
So Sharita, you can correct me. Edit away.
Can you give me a quick and dirty synopsis of that? Because you said a lot of stuff, and I think I got lost.
I'm saying, I'm wondering if sometimes things feel like they come to HSAC almost like an information exchange, not just in announcements, but like up in the body of the meeting. And SED, my understanding, the couple meetings I went to before it started to wind down, was that it was kind of an information exchange, like for frontline people to get information. So I'm saying sometimes we may need to think about if something like SED gets going again, what goes down in a sense to frontline people more, and what needs to be held at a governance level, if that makes sense. And that's where in my brain I'm differentiating between Medicaid expansion as a frontline people thing and transformation of like, this could be another way to fund housing for people, is a conversation at a governance level, because that impacts how we use the funding we've got. I may be
So,
oversimplifying it.
no, you're not oversimplifying it. The problem is because we haven't had a say it in such a long time. Sometimes information sharing has had to happen in HSAC because otherwise, when do you have the people's attention enough to spread the message, say it one time and a whole lot of people get the information. So I look forward to say it reconvening because it was a lot of information sharing and a lot of me letting people know that the clinic is here and all those things that I'm having to do now in HSAC that I would have otherwise done instead, making sure people are informed and aware of how to access us and how it's not complicated. So yes, it was also relationship building and it was also getting some other people to do work so that the work didn't all land with just the willing workers. You get what I'm saying? Because they just keep repeating this. And we can't repeat ourselves so many times because then at some point we're not even doing the job that we're all paid to do because we keep having to sit at tables. And so how do we get more people helping and contributing to the COC in a way that's meaningful and helpful that helps us as a HSAC do better. So I mean, I feel like we getting that group back to the table and seeing how they can help us be able to truly be an administrating body and also being able to make sure that our continuum gets work done to help us be better and help us have time to strategize and do all those overarching things that we've been having to wear multiple hats and do and sit at our meetings and do this work at the same time. Did I answer your question, Russ?
So it's sounding like this dynamic duo of Fred and Ann would be a longer presentation that may be worth it doing at a later date. That it would be tricky to split them up, but that we're clear that it could be more of a transformation conversation. So I think that's definitely worth putting on a future item. I'm also looking through and seeing a few future items that, or maybe just one that we've covered. So how do we feel about, adding in, we'll have approval of minutes, the policy and planning update, and then the debriefing on scores, and then just leaving our meeting at that for March. Thanks, Russ, for being willing to ask.
So how do you want me to title Russ and Fred? What?
Oh, I don't think we're gonna do that.
Okay,
Yeah, I think we want to put that as a future item. So
Okay.
you replace it with the first one because that clinic piece,
yep.
what we did
the
at the
retreat.
last meeting. And then maybe just indicate that it's, I feel like that would be an item that would take up a full meeting, which is great.
I will put Medicaid expansion. I will put Medicaid service expansion because the piloted stuff that Fred has been doing, and Sally, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if it's officially been approved yet as a billable service under Medicaid because it was a waiver program. I don't know what's been fully enveloped as a billable service. So unless Russ, you know something that I don't know.
Well, I had a conversation because Peter helped write a bunch of it, and with Peter Skillern helped with a bunch of the writing back in the day. And it sounds like they'll have full confirmation maybe in November, but then
Okay.
rollout will be pretty quick afterwards. So it went from April, May to November. So
we could do this later than sooner. Is that what you're saying? But
yeah,
not too late that it's
yeah,
like that we're scrambling trying to take advantage of it.
yeah. Late
Gotcha.
spring because it's it's a big, any agency that's going to do it, it's a big build out.
So we could aim for May, looking at our April, for that. If you want to check Russ.
Yeah.
With to see if they're available.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So we'll have a little bit of a shorter agenda, but it'll allow time if our COC debriefing conversation goes longer, we'll have it. You won't feel rushed. All right, well, I failed at my goal of keeping this meeting short. Sorry, y'all. It's always next time. So we already kind of covered what about the retreat, that we'll kind of go more in depth in April. I would like to just go ahead and like skip that. I think I was just hoping for people to say like, yeah, it went great, or here's some quick things that I'm thinking about in this moment. So if you have thoughts in this moment that we can capture as exec team, just throw them in the chat. I did want to make sure we touched base on committee leadership recruitment for exec committee, but also I know, thanks, Melissa, for saving that feedback if folks have it in the chat. Also wanted to make sure we discussed, and a part of our discussions have been the governance charter, thinking about committee leadership. So just wanted to open up space so that folks could share any thoughts they had around recruitment or conversations they're already having. Yeah.
So I think the question comes down to, we need to think through, do we have any folks in mind that we would like to reach out to? Because we know we're always scrambling to find people to fill vice chair. Ebony will move into the chair. Russ, I know you're currently secretary. Do you want to run for secretary another time, or would you like us to try and find somebody to fill your shoes?
I think for the good of HSAC, we need to be careful about having people in the same position more than 2 years, because then it creates an expectation, and folks, I would love to see folks step up and not have Russ stuck in that secretary position for years and years. Just, I think after 2, we just need to be careful. So I will also let Russ speak, but I've had that conversation with him.
No, yeah, she's afraid I'm going to backtrack. I think that makes sense.
Okay.
I think that makes sense.
It's
Well, I
hard.
want to
It's
bring
hard
it
to
up.
not feel the pressure. So I was hopeful to try to take some pressure off of you with that statement.
If
And
we start fixing governance, then I might hang on for another 6 months. I will give energy to a governance rework, but yes.
yeah.
Do we have a list? I think like a list of HSAC members, like how long they've been on HSAC, who have been recent chairs. I think some of that, just like because we have people that stay on for a while, will help kind of narrow. But also something I mentioned to Ebony, and she's not here today, is kind of like what would be a good complement to Ebony in her role as chair, and kind of asked her to think about that as well.
I mean, we do have our membership list that we can go through and pull together some recommendations. We'll have some turnover. I think Angel Vic Lewis's term ends June 30th, so the city will be looking to fill lived experience. We have tried to get people with lived experience in the leadership team. So right now, Ms. Holmes is currently I think she's on the county side for lived experience, if we want to reach out to her. She's been chair, she's been all of these things in the past. I know that was one thing that we have done in the past, of trying to do that. And I think it's important to make sure that we get lived experience into leadership positions when we're able to.
Not to add further to the challenges of recruiting leadership, but it is my intention to step aside as chair of Performance Management Committee at the conclusion of the HSAC year. I have certainly enjoyed it, Unfortunately, just changes in workload have made it very hard for me to always be present at those meetings. And thankfully, I've had a really helpful colleague, Tracy Stone Dino, who's been able to chair whenever I haven't been available. So, I haven't talked to her about how she feels about the position, but I think she would do a wonderful job if it's something that she would be interested in.
I am always willing to give up my seat if somebody wants to lead policy and planning. I think I make that message clear every year. But I will say, if nobody steps up, I will stay in that role. But I am concerned about nobody stepping up to do it, because what if my wildest dream comes true and I get to go work at HUD in DC or something and I'm gone? Then what? So or something else, like I hit the lottery, or I run for mayor or something. What who knows? Who knows? But that is a area of concern. But I'm always willing to just sit at the table, not have to be the person in charge. So,
Is part of our challenge that you have to be an actual HSAC member to chair one of the committees? Is that okay? And that is a governance issue, correct? Not ILL issue. Okay.
I
but
have
it
to
needs.
double check.
I think that needs to stay. I don't think that should change.
Then an HSEC member has to be chair.
Because then that they have to come to exec meetings. I think that's where.
Yeah.
And so we had played around with this idea of like, what could co-chairs look like, and kind of, and how would co-chairs support folks having a learning year as a chair, or the situation where somebody's not an HSAC member.
Well, yeah, I mean, that succession thing, because in all seriousness, we're talking about everybody but Ebony changing right now.
Yes.
That isn't healthy on its own side. So
yeah,
I will stay. I can stay policy and planning. If Jonathan has to.
But you're going on half a decade. If I'm getting
however long policy and planning has been in place, I think I've been the policy and planning chair.
Maybe there's a way, it's like, I think we've talked a lot about strategy, right? Is like, it doesn't all have to happen in one year, but how are we setting ourselves up, right? So Sharita, in knowing that you've been there for so long and that folks may be hesitant to step up, can we be intentional about saying like to somebody, hey, you may not feel comfortable for this coming year, but do you want to come under my wing? Have you tried that? It sounds like you tried that. Yeah,
absolutely. I don't have a problem. I don't even have a problem staying, because I do have a agency seat per se. I don't even mind staying on policy and planning, and so I can be a help to whoever steps into that role, because my heart is there at policy and planning. So that's my thing. So I think that I will always be a part of policy and planning, so the person would not be alone. It's just getting a person to agree to come to the role. Yeah.
Right. So is there, from your perspective, for folks that are on your team, policy and planning, are there folks that have the time but are like more intimidated by filling that role, or is it a time issue for folks? Or unclear?
I don't know. That could be something that I put on the agenda for policy and planning on the 11th, to just talk through that and talk through me stepping aside and somebody else coming on, or me mentoring somebody over the next year to be prepared for the following year. I can bring that up. It's just to create that space for willingness. And then if folks have want to talk through what that looks like. Like the time doesn't have to be the time. The time is the time that works for the group that you have that are willing to sit at the table. So things like that. So I can make space on the agenda. Colin, we can put that on the agenda for policy and planning for the upcoming meeting. And so, yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
If I can, I was just gonna say, speaking of time, like there are only 3 months left of meetings for this HSAC year. So I don't know if that's something for every committee. If you guys want to start discussing, if you guys are looking at different days or times that you want to meet, I would start having those discussions next month, or the upcoming meetings, just because there aren't a whole lot of months left to start planning for the next schedule for HSAC.
Great. And Sharita, I know sometimes people can be intimidated by speaking up in those big meetings. So if you get a sense of offline conversations that you're able to have, I think that is also an opportunity to kind of let people personally share, here are my fears, and talk through that. Jonathan, I see your hand.
Yes. Well, from my perspective, I think there is an intimidation factor. I think for a lot of people on HSAC, homelessness and HUD are not really their expertise. And I think people feel very uncomfortable with that. So I think one of the things that perhaps we, as those that are currently in leadership, could express to people is that it is okay to learn by doing.
Yeah.
So I came to my current position from a rapid rehousing project, and I thought I knew a lot about homelessness, but I really, didn't really know a lot about the HUD side. And so I started scoring applications as a way to be better informed when I would have the meetings, and it kind of morphed from there. So I think that's part of it. I mean, the other unique challenge, at least for performance management, is we do have a lot of conflicts of interest. Some of my most active members are from organizations that are in receipt of HUD funds, and I don't know that they're necessarily going to feel comfortable stepping into the chair role, but maybe that that changes over time.
Yep. And you can put me on the list of people that fall into that category of it was uncomfortable for me. And I'm happy to have that conversation with other people to let them know that they aren't alone in those learning as we go situations. So if that's helpful for either of y'all in this process, connect us. I'm happy to grab coffee or whatever with folks. Russ.
I'm just coming back to, I feel like part of our issue is a pool issue. The pool is not deep enough.
Yep.
And so I'm just wondering how we can expedite. I mean, I know doing the ILA is more involved. So at the moment I'm saying, can we please, even if a few of us go off into the corner for 2 hours and look at the governance doc and say, how do we make some adjustments on this? Because I do understand the conflict of interest piece. I mean, I carry that in mind all the time, even in some of these conversations because of my role. But plenty of COCs find ways to manage this when they're the only ones really at the table. So there must be some way to do this in a healthy way. And I think if we could even expand the pool to the official COC representatives to the COC are eligible to serve as chairs, that could be a start. And I will say I'm increasingly hopeful that there comes a point where we find a way for the COC membership to appoint some people to the HSAC, just the way the city and the county do, so that we have that there's more balance in a sense. Because so I am willing, as long as it's not more than a couple hours, to sit down with somebody, look at governance for like, what are some quick fixes potentially in there? And also, work with a group later on updating the ILA. I will say we do have a group that's doing some research on this for us at Sanford right now. So we will have information in probably March 1st, in about 5 weeks, 5-6 weeks, that may help us, particularly on the ILA side.
What if we look at the governance document in April, and between now and April, maybe I don't know if it's better to try and tackle this as an exec committee for our April meeting, or if it's better for a little bit of revision work to happen between now and April, send it out to the committee for discussion at April, so it's not, sight reading and trying to make decisions, but it's also not created in a complete vacuum where it's just, here, we're bringing it in, now rubber stamp it.
Yeah, I think what may be helpful is if a couple folks are willing to meet and kind of bring something to our next meeting that we can discuss, I think that would help move. I'd be happy to host folks at my office if we find a date and if there's a group that's interested in having that conversation. I feel like then it at least moves us to step one to have a more productive strategic conversation in this time with the exec team all together. That would just be my take on those options. Especially thinking about 3-month timeline. We've got to get this moving.
All right.
Other thoughts from folks? We don't have to do what I said.
I would love I was gonna say I would love to be part of however we choose to to review and do the governance charter. I would love to be part of that while I'm still in leadership.
Okay, so maybe what I'll do is I'll send an email to exec following this meeting, figuring out if there's a time in March where we could get together before our April meeting. If we do in person, I can get us some snacks, or we could do Zoom, but I like in person.
And they have good snacks in that office. I'm
gonna get us some good snacks, so it won't just be office snacks. And hopefully we'll get a small group, or whoever wants to come in, and then we'll bring that to our April exec meeting.
Sounds like a plan.
Thanks, Melissa, for also offering the conference room. So we'll see what works best for the group, the CDD conference room, or my office is in the Mutual, North Carolina Mutual building. Great. So I think we have some strategy here. I did not hear any names brought up for our exec committee, which is okay. But I just want to name that. And I think this larger strategy piece is questioning kind of not their capacity, but who is kind of on HSAC that could fill those roles. So I think what might be helpful in moving that conversation is if there's an updated chart that names who is in which seats. And either if folks are new within the year, those feel like folks that would not maybe be the best choice for exec, but maybe for a committee. So if there's any of that that's available easily that y'all can share with exec, I think that could help us get that conversations moving.
I do have one name that may be, and I haven't talked to her how she feels about this, but certainly Shantae Addison has been our secretary, and not to deplete our, the performance management of all of its leadership, but she's done a wonderful job. And if she, was interested in, being in maybe in the pipeline for leadership, I think she would do a wonderful job.
And Shantae is at Housing for New Hope, right? Is that right? Okay.
And she's our current Secretary of Performance Management.
Got it. Housing for New Hope, bringing
the Fine Performance Management Chair as well.
Awesome. Okay. So Melissa, I was typing now. I can just ask you. You said you'd bring the updated directory to the conversation. Were you thinking about that conversation we're planning for March or the April exec?
Specifically the conversation around looking at who could potentially be good for leadership. So if you guys want to do that at March, then I can in March and in that early meeting that we have, then I can bring it to that conversation. Or if you'd prefer to save it for the April exec, we can do that.
Okay. What do y'all think?
Russ, I will say in terms when you guys were asking about like how long people have served, I really don't have any data from before I started.
Okay.
But I can at least share with you because we do have data as to like when people's term ends. So I can share that with you at the very least. So
Okay.
if there are people who have limited terms, I can share those end dates with you.
Thank you.
Great. So Melissa, I'd say you can share that chart with us in our April exec. I think I want to honor the space in our like mini pop-up meeting to really focus on the governance charter and not get distracted. So I think even if you shared it then, I'm not sure we would really spend the time to look at it. So let's bring that for the next meeting. Thank you. And I think that's all, unless there are other announcements from folks on the call. All right. Oh, we did not do our minutes. Or we need to approve our February minutes. Let me go back and do that real
I
quick.
move to accept the minutes
And I
as
second that.
presented.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sharita. Second, Jonathan, please vote in the chat. Y'all are awesome. All right, with no further business, the minutes have been approved. And I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Second.
Thanks, Russ. Second from Jonathan. Thanks, everybody. Look for that email to find a time to meet before our next exec. Bye.
Thanks all.